Hey everyone, today I'm going to go over how to make a multi-layer image out of a simple graphic in Adobe Illustrator as well as Gravit Designer. So right now I have Gravit Designer open, so we'll start here, and I've opened up the graphic that I'm going to be recreating. So on my layers palette, I want to start by locking my reference image so I don't end up moving that around as I'm working. So on that palette, if you just hover over right next to your image name, you can see that there's a little unlocked lock. If you click that, it will lock that layer. So now I can't move it around on my page. The other thing I want you guys to look at here is that there is a little eyeball next to it. So as I'm working, if I ever need to hide any layers as I'm stacking them on top of each other to see through to something that's below it, you can always hit that icon so that you can see through to what's underneath. So let's go ahead and make a brand new layer on top of that layer. And I'm going to start by tracing the outside of Victor Viking here. So grabbing my regular pen tool, I'm going to click and drag to make curves and just singly click and let go to make anything that is a straight edge. Making my way around the outside of the shape. Remember, if you do mess up at any point here, you can always hit the Control Z option, or if you're on a MacBook, it's going to be Command Z to release that last anchor point so you can start that point over again. You can also use the Alt key if you are pulling a curve like this, and I don't want to make a second curve after it, to be able to come back onto my path here and maneuver it a little bit easier. If you can't do that for whatever reason, just drop an extra anchor point. You can always delete that anchor point later. But at least it'll keep you on path to where you are heading to in the correct direction. Also keep in mind that we want to do this in as few anchor points as you possibly can. So if you see that you have too many at the very end, you can always use your regular pen tool to hover back over the top of them and delete those extra anchor points. When I get to the end here, you'll notice that my mouse is going to turn into a little circle icon. That's telling me that I'm closing my path. So here's my design that I just created, that outline. At this point, I could go back and fix anything that I want to. If I need to turn the opacity down of that layer so I can see through a little bit better, you absolutely can do that just on the layers palette here. Type in the number that you want, click off of it anywhere, and you should be able to see through to that layer below. I can see here it got a little bit bumpy, so if I wanted to go back and fix that, I have a couple options. One is my white arrow key, that is the sub-select tool. So if I click on an anchor point, I can either use my finger on the trackpad, my mouse, or the arrow keys on your computer to just bump that into place to make sure that it's correct on the path. I can also maneuver my handlebars if I need to be able to make sure that they're flowing consistently with the path that I'm drawing. The last option too is if I have a sharp edge where I really want a curved edge. For example, if I grab my pen tool and I made this into a sharp edge and I really want that to be a curved edge, all you have to do is hover back over the top of it and drag it. So click and drag it with the regular pen tool and pull it in the direction so that it's going to create that nice curve. You can see the preview there. Let go and it'll form that curve from your sharp edge. All right, now the next step is going to be filling this shape in with gray. So I'm going to go to my regular arrow key, my regular selection tool, and select my item. And I'm going to turn off that fill temporarily, again with that visibility icon, that eye, and I can use my eyedropper to go back over the top of my original design underneath and find that gray. Click once, and now I have that nice exact gray color as the image that I'm trying to create. If I go to my border color, there is no border on the original icon, so I'm going to just click the visibility of that off, so I'm only left with the gray. So there's my first drawing. Now on this layer, I have to hide it because I need to be able to draw on top of it. So since I'm done with it, I'm going to lock it so I don't end up moving it accidentally. Click on the eyeball to turn off the visibility, and now I need, again, a brand new layer so that I can draw on that new layer. So using my pen tool, again, I would zoom in really close to these shapes as you draw them, just so that you have a little bit better view as you're going around the outside of them. The closer you are to something, the easier it is to be able to draw it. So don't hesitate to use that zoom option. Use Control+ on your keyboard to be able to zoom in, and Control- to zoom out. Okay, so again, I have this shape drawn. If I use my eyedropper, I can choose that fill color. My stroke is already set to black, but if I needed to change it to something else, like this one is white, so I would change it to white. And it's also a thicker stroke on the outside than what it automatically comes with, so I'm going to change that to 3 instead to match better with the original image. Okay, and I'm going to go around and do the same thing with all of my other shapes here. So just drawing them individually, tracing around the outside, pulling curves, making straight lines, using that Alt key whenever you need to, but dropping as few anchor points as you possibly can. And remember, if you mess up, you can always go back and maneuver your picture later. That is the beauty of drawing on the computer. You don't have to be great at drawing on paper. You just need to be able to fix your design after you're done. Okay, now that I've drawn all of the pieces that go on top of my layer, I'm going to go back to my layers palette. You can see that all of these different paths, all these different pieces that I drew are showing up on this new layer. If you don't want to see all of that, you can click the little arrow icon right next to the layer so that it's just all together. But what I do want to make sure is that I bring back the visibility of my layer underneath. So here that is. So now that I have my image complete and I just have that image that's left in the background that I don't need that reference image, if you click on that image on your layers palette and just hit delete or backspace on your keyboard. It'll remove it from your design and you're all set. Go to File, Export, and you can save that as a PDF file to be able to turn it in. That way it's a safe document. You can always go back and adjust it or add it to another document that you're creating still as a vector image. All right, let's go ahead and do the same thing now in Illustrator. So in Illustrator, we have our layers palette here. Again, I'm going to lock that layer so that I don't move it around as I'm adjusting anything. And I want to go down to the bottom of my layers palette and click that new layer button to make a brand new layer on top. Now, just like we did before, on this new layer, I'm going to target whatever my biggest item is, whatever is going to be furthest back in my space. And I can start tracing that. Control plus if you need to zoom in. Make sure you can still see your whole design that you're drawing though. And then I'm going to click and drag to make my curves as I go around the edge. Now in Illustrator, you'll notice that it starts to automatically fill typically. So if you would like to turn your fill off so you can see better, like if I got over here, it's going to be harder to see. Your layer is going to show the color of the fill as well as the stroke. So right now there's a slash through my stroke. I don't have any line color, but I do want to turn that fill color off. So as long as it's on top, I can click the little icon down below here with the red slash to turn that off just temporarily. So while I am drawing, I can actually see through. Okay, now when I get back to the starting point, if I see that there's anything I need to fix, like I definitely have some gaps here, you can always use that white arrow key or direct selection tool to bump it around. Again, the arrow keys on your computer work really nicely to be able to move those if you need to. You can also pull those handlebars, or if there's any anchor points that you don't need, remember you can delete them with the delete anchor point tool or the regular pen tool. Or if there's anything that you need to curve in Illustrator, you do need to go to that anchor point tool separately. You can't just pull it with the regular pen tool or you'll end up deleting your anchor point. So go to the anchor point tool, and let's say that this one was a sharp edge. I can go back over the top of it and just pull it in the direction that I want and create that curve from the preview. All right, now I need to fill this shape with that same color gray. So using my eyedropper tool, I can click on that color gray that's in the background to fill it in. Lock that layer, make a new layer above it, and I need to be able to see now back to my bottom shape. So if I use that visibility icon here, I can turn that off temporarily. Zoom in nice and close to the shapes that I'm trying to draw. And now start to draw those individual pieces the same way we just did in Gravit. As few anchor points as possible. I would turn off that fill absolutely so you can see what you're doing, especially in the detailed areas like the face. Okay, and now Illustrator, again, you can use your eyedropper to choose the color. If you are doing something a little bit more advanced, and let's say I wanted a specific stroke color, you can use the eyedropper, make sure that nothing is selected, grab your eyedropper, I can grab that color, and if you double click on the color, you can always see the color code that represents that color. So if you copy that, Control C, and if I wanted that stroke color, that red color, to be on the outside of the shape, I could double click on my stroke color right here. Control V is paste. to paste that on there. Now, my shape doesn't have a stroke, but I just wanted to show you that you can copy and paste that color code to make that stroke color exactly to match something else that's in the design if you ever needed to. You don't have to on this project, but for future reference, it's not like Gravit Designer where you can just grab the specific stroke eyedropper and then go and grab the color that you want. So I'm going to turn that stroke back off. Okay, and let's continue to finish up the rest of this design here. Alright, so once again I have the shapes all filled in, but I need to bring back that layer underneath. So I'm going to go back to my layers palette here and turn on the visibility for that layer that was below. And I need to delete that layer of the actual reference image. So I'm going to unlock that and drag that layer down to the trash. So I'm only left with the image I drew. And now at this point you can go back again and make any fine-tune adjustments if you see that there's any bumps or grooves that you need to go back and fix. You have any sharp edges that need to be curved, you can use that. So using the anchor point tool, I can fix any curves. Just drag over the top of the anchor point and drag it. Or if I need to delete any extra anchor points that you don't need, you can use the delete anchor point tool. Or if you just need to move the whole anchor point over a little bit, use the direct selection tool or white arrow key.